Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions Internet. We got another awesome episode for you, the continuation of origins in the ancient Egyptian mythos. It's going to be awesome. We got Douglas Martin in the house this episode. I believe it's number 20. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We're in the beautiful gardens of Babylon, and then we're going to head to China. We're going to go back to China, go through the Great Wall, deal with those bosses. Should be fun, and learn some intense knowledge. Douglas Martin is an absolute legend. I just want to give a shout out to him. Thanks for putting in the time, putting in the work to understanding these concepts, and then explaining them to us to help us further understand these concepts. But he is right. It's all about, it's more important to read the books where that makes it a lot easier to understand. We have this book called Magic, Occult, and Witchcraft, or that's not the exact title, but it's something along those lines. And it's been helping, as I've been reading it, it's been helping me understand these deep topics. So that's why we do the book reviews on Beagle Eye Visions. So stay tuned for Give to Nature and Nature Will Give to You. Stay tuned for that book review. And if you're in the northern Indiana area, Elkhart, Michiana Education and Arts Club, will be having an awesome hardcore punk show. Sentenced to Live, Among the Essence, Void Class from Michigan City, and I myself, Dead End on Sarah, will be opening up the show. So come on out. It's just a donation base, so if you don't have that much money, you could always, even if you have $1, if that's all you have, just donate $1, give it to the bands for gas money. They'll still let you in the door. It's not one of those types of establishments. So come on out. Come on out to Michiana Education and Arts Clubs this Saturday, March 2nd. It's going to be an epic show. It's going to be a rager, as they say. So I digress. Let's get into this deep information. Let's go.
And that's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue. It's because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Today is October 5th, 2020. I am your host, Nate Cap. Welcome to the 20th CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. Today we have Douglas Martin back on the show. I'm really excited to see what he has to extrapolate on with the ideas from podcast number 19. So welcome back, Douglas.
Great to be back, Nate.
On our last show, Douglas gave us the meaning of westing. He extrapolated on the meaning behind westing and the Setian principle. He also covered the origins of secret societies, just the basic origins of secret societies, and the derivation and meaning behind what a cult is. Today we're going to go further and extrapolate on those topics, especially secret societies and cults. And we may even cover some important knowledge regarding mind control, since we've kind of got away from that a little bit, but maybe we'll incorporate that into this show. Something we'll be getting into on the next show for sure. One of the first questions that I have is, you say that the stellar people are the pyramid builders. What I want to know, and I think what a lot of people would love to know, is how does one come to know and understand that?
That's a tough question. Main thing is we have to take into consideration that what the stellar people are doing is all about the number 7. And ultimately, when we fully understand the meaning of the structure, we can flesh out that it's all about this number 7. This has no regard to the solar cult, because the solar cult is largely dealing with the 12 and the 13 being the path of the sun, which is the 1, and then the 12 houses of the zodiac, which gives us the 13. And that's in relation to the 14, which would be the basis of essentially the lunar doctrine. So this is hard to explain, because as the mythology evolved through the different phases, we have to consider that they're trying to bring on the tenets of the earlier phases of the mythology into the later phases. So this is partly facilitated through this 7. So I think when we're studying the mythology, we need to kind of keep that in relation to this number 7 as we're trying to understand the significance of the other numerology. So the best way to make that, or to codify that as a foundation, is to say that all things 7 are the little bear, and all things 12 are dealing with the zodiac.
Right.
And to balance that out, we have to understand that the lunar phase of the mythology falls between the stellar mythos and the emergence of the solar mythos. So part of understanding the lunar doctrine is kind of understanding how the stellar would be brought on into the lunar with regard to this 7. So that helps us understand the beginning of the lunar phase, and then the end of the lunar phase in relation to the emergence of the solar phase. So as we understand the stellar in its pinnacle of its evolution, and then the beginnings of the solar, that kind of gives us an idea of the beginning and the end of the lunar. And in each case, they're trying to bring on tenets of the old, and ultimately that becomes corrupted. But in its initial onset, I think it's benevolent. I think that it's a genuine effort to keep the connection with Source. So the 7 has everything to do with that.
So hold on, for real quick. So what you're saying, see, because the way I would think most people would see it is like, how do you know that there were these people that were, called the stellar people who were pyramid builders? How do you know that they actually lifted the blocks and, made them into this pyramidal shape? Are you saying, are you getting to that point, or are you making the point that it's more important to understand, the numbers, the numerology in correspondence with each other? And that it's more of it's more about understanding the spiritual essence of it.
No, I'm saying it's about understanding the culture and understanding what they're endeavoring to do. So there's, from a mature perspective of this, the student taking themselves seriously in their research, there's no easy answer to that question, and it's a good question. Obviously, that's the question that is perplexing academia.
Right.
So if we're going to flesh it out, we have to exceed academia. Everything that we've discussed up to this point and are going to continue to discuss about this stellar phase is going to help explain that. I think part of what you're getting at is, how do we understand the timeline? How do we understand how much time it actually represents? Why are the estimates so skewed? Mm-hmm. Especially in what we might call Egyptology and archaeology. Why are they having such a difficult time understanding it, or is it totally co-opted and a controlled narrative, which in many ways it seems to be? I mean, these are part of the forbidden areas of research, it seems. Particularly, I'm going to mention philology and etymology. It's as though academia has gone into the areas of Egyptology and archaeology and etymology and the origins of language and philology and put up no trespassing signs everywhere. So it's like we're trotting on forbidden ground, and that they've laid claim, or that, you know, they're trying to monopolize a claim, which I think we've already laid out enough information to show is inept. But we're going to continue to do that. That's what I mean when I say listen to the rhetoric when you're studying these other Egyptologists. You know, I mean, all the way back to Wallace Budge. We have to find the ineptitude in his work. And, you know, I said that what we're able to flesh out now has only been possible for the last 100 years. What I mean by that is that before J. Norman Lockyer and Gerald Massey's work, there's not really enough information, particularly about Babylon, or Egypt for that matter, to do the comparison between the two. So it's what we now know about Babylon that we've only known for the last 100 years that allows us to contrast and compare that to the Egyptian and flesh out these deeper secrets and start to get this timeline into focus. You know, as I said, the stellar people measured time in these epochs of the Great Year Cycle, and they did leave records of that. So we have at least 11 documented epochs. That constitutes roughly 250,000 years. And that will be disputed in the Egyptology community. But it will, you know, what their contention is won't necessarily make what we're saying untrue. So we have to be able to examine the artifacts with objectivity. In a sense, we have to really bring a certain amount of knowledge to the information. I mean, ideally, the term Freemasonry is misleading. But the evolution of the human mental processes, which we can say is the evolution of the human race, or constitutes the latter part of the evolution of the human race, is pari passu with the evolution of Freemasonry. It's in lockstep. So we can't understand the origins and evolution of the human race without understanding the origins and evolution of what we know in the modern world as Freemasonry. If it makes us feel more comfortable, we can just refer to that as a mystery tradition. You know, we can get into the controversy, what came first, tarot or Kabbalah or Freemasonry. But, you know, I would tell you it's all forms of Freemasonry, because Freemasonry definitively defines the whole. The menorah, for instance, composes, or essentially is, the Kabbalah. And we've been talking about these large numbers for these timelines, and I'm trying to express that it goes that far back, that the pyramids had been built 150,000 years ago, and that basically typifies the end of the stellar mythos, the stellar phase, and that the Kabbalah has been with us longer than that. But Double Cube has been with us longer than Kabbalah. And they're both part of the same teaching. I mean, ideally, I would make the claim that it's all Freemasonry. It doesn't really feel right to me to say it's all Kabbalism, because that's not encompassing enough. It doesn't use the builder's tools. It didn't start with Double Cube. And, you know, the Double Cube is dealing with the 4 and then ultimately the 8, the 4's cardinal points and the 4 more semi-cardinal points, which give us the 8. That came before the menorah. That came before the Kabbalistic tree of life. But we know that the Kabbalistic tree of life incorporates the pillars in a sense. And therefore, it's a model which constitutes a method that's very similar in many ways to the first degree tracing board of Freemasonry, which deals with the 2 pillars and then ultimately the 3rd ionic pillar, which corresponds to the path of mildness in the Kabbalistic tradition, and the pillar of Jachin corresponding to the path of severity, and the pillar of Boaz corresponding to the path of mercy. So I just wanted to show you some of the ubiquity in Freemasonry. And then, of course, the tarot incorporates symbolism with the pillars. So they all have this close relation. You know, the direct answer to your question is that there is no instant gratification. There's no easy answer.
Right.
And I don't think most people are this far along on their personal journey, and maybe never will get this far on their personal journey where they get into the anthropology. I am telling you that it's vital that a lot of the things that we discuss that are more advanced will need to become common knowledge as to how much into the anthropology everybody has to go. To hear me tell it, we're not getting out of this without understanding the stellar mythos.
And what is it that we're not getting out of?
We're not getting out of the perpetuated condition of what we were discussing as Westing. We're going straight into materialism. We're going straight into the solar force. You know, the more we associate with sensuals, the less we can associate with spirituals. And this is all related to Westing, which we've been discussing.
Yeah, for those who haven't heard podcast number 19, definitely go back and listen to that, where Doug extrapolates on Westing. He does a very, very good job of helping us understand how we have strayed from the generative principle of care, of true care.
There's no real easy answer, and you're not going to have something that you didn't earn. And we're talking about things that very few people understand or have understood. We're going to have to, a certain degree, take our time with this stuff.
Right.
I'm not really going to sound, it might sound rhetorical, but if I'm hammering on the same point is because I know how few people understand it, and what you've presented is a very legitimate question that people want the answer to. But the fact is, if we're digging in the dirt and we don't understand the culture, which is based on what they care about and what they're endeavoring to do, there's no way that we could hope to understand what we're finding as we dig into the layers of the strata.
Right. This is all about, you can't understand the one without the two. So that means you can't, if you haven't, as far as I see it, if you only study, the physical, the material, which is, considered the body, but you haven't studied the spiritual side of what these stellar people cared about, then you really can't understand the full picture. You only have half the picture, correct?
Absolutely. If I say to somebody, the pyramid is the ritual in stone of the seven, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
And to understand the fullness of what this seven represents, it's going to take many, many years of research. And, we all, I'm sure, have encountered how prolific the septenary is in all of the traditions. Almost every tradition that we find deals with some form of the septenary. So what is the significance of this septenary? Well, it's ancient, and it's the ubiquity that we want to look for when we do the comparative eclectic study across cultures or cultural research. The whole point I'm trying to make is it is an eclectic study. It requires an eclectic study, and it's the ubiquity that we need to find that give us evidence of common tenets or common traditions. Anything that one tradition is using that we find something similar to in another tradition, that's the ubiquity. And that's what we largely need to put our focus on. Yeah, because as I said before, as each culture had exodus out of the Nile Valley, whatever phase the evolution of the mythos was in at that stage would exit the Nile Valley, and then wherever it would arrive would immediately be going into a stagnated phase. In other words, from whatever point it left, it did not continue to evolve, so the best that it could do was to preserve its own symbolisms and customs that ultimately did become vestigial, did not evolve, and try to keep that preserved with the hope that at some point we could recover it and restore it to its pure form.
Yeah, and the ubiquitous symbols that you speak of that are found in all these different cultures would be, like the moon, the sun, and the stars, right? That's what we're finding in all these cultures that I notice, and this is to me what ties them all together and helps us go further back in time to see how to understand the aspects of consciousness within these, found in these symbols, right?
I mean, yeah, this is the cosmology where the knowledge was attempted to be stored and preserved in cosmology. But the ubiquity that I'm referring to, yeah, they all used the stars and the moon and the sun to demonstrate a cycle, which is about a fertility cycle. So the idea of fertility is about incarnation, which is our creation story, and then reincarnation, which is our everlasting existence. So fertility is relevant to that because contrary to that is infertility, and that constitutes a stagnation, ultimately a cessation or extinction. So this idea of this fertility in relation to agriculture and, when to plant, when to harvest, when to sow, when to reap, that we don't reap if we don't sow, in correspondence with life as the preparatory phase for the afterlife, all these kinds of concepts associated with spiritual ideas. What I was trying to say is, the sun, the moon, and the stars are ubiquitous in that sense because the only true divisions, when it comes right down to it, when we really understand what we're dealing with, the only true divisions are pre-totemic people, and then totemic, non-hero cult, or totemic hero cult. And the three hero cults that constitutes the real evolution, starting with stellar, are stellar, lunar, and solar.
Stars, moon, and sun.
Yeah, and I'm making the claim that the stellar phase, or the stellar people of Egypt, are the pyramid builders, and they're primarily concerned about the seven. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that some of the more advanced ubiquity is dealing with this numerology. That we can definitely distinguish solar doctrine from stellar doctrine because everything in the stellar is dealing with the seven, and everything in the solar is largely based on the 12. But we also have to consider that each phase of this mythology has its own chronology, and that the initial phase is not exactly the same as its pinnacle phase or its advanced phase. So, for instance, the early stellar mythos begins in the southern hemisphere and venerates in the southern pole star. So Set is original primary deity. And then they migrate north in the Nile Valley, which flows north at the halfway point when they're recognizing both southern and northern circumpolar constellations. Set is basically accompanied or beginning to be rivaled by the Horus of the double horizon. So they're venerating in both pole stars, which I have said that constitutes the first contingency. What I want to say is the very first secret society, because the idea is that we need a contingency as we move away from source in case we break off and get cut off from source. So the idea is that the very first secret society is Horus of the double horizon, what we can call Horus Behutet, as a contingency to remember that Sut was original primary deity, because they're already aware that it's ultimately going to end up primacy in the north, which it does when they venerate into Ursa Minor, which is a big part of the reason why the pyramids were built.
So Behutet, Horus Behutet is, you said, is the original Horus, right? Like, you're saying that that's where Horus originated from, is Horus Behutet. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say, it's the beginning of recognizing Horus as one of the heroes.
Okay.
But we have to understand, they're venerating in the southern circumpolar constellations. Of course, they understand the polarity and its correspondence to the North Pole. But it's partly in relation geographically to the way the southern hemisphere is functioning opposite of the northern hemisphere with relation to the movement on the path of the sun and the changing of the seasons. Main point is, Sut is original primary deity. So as it moves toward the north, ultimately becoming primacy in the north, that means when it's primacy in the north that the god of the North Pole, which we can call Horus, has fully deposed the god of the South Pole, which is Sut. So S-U-T is south. So at the halfway point, when it's Horus Behutet, that's the introduction to Horus divinized. So this is the beginning of the divinizing of the North Pole. So we're trying to make a distinction between understanding that the southern polarity or the southern pole has a counterpart, but that counterpart was not divinized at all until Horus Behutet. And that Horus Behutet was a contingency because you're moving away from primary deity. In other words, they know it's going to go primacy in the north, or has the potential to go primacy in the north, which typifies the masculine energy. So the idea is that the Horus Behutet is a contingency to be able to reconcile that Sut had been original primary deity, and those constitute the source ideas. So let me just try to clarify this. Just try to simplify it, because it's not going to be easy to simplify, and it's never going to be simple. We have to understand that these ideas are perplexing our best minds and have perplexed the best minds, and we're trying to flesh them out and directly present them. It's going to have a certain weightiness or heaviness to it. It's going to be like staring directly into the light at first. We have to get familiar. We have to get comfortable with these terms, which we don't really hear on a regular basis. And most people associate Horus and Sut with solar doctrine and sunrise and sunset. And we're talking about the same name of the deity in a different phase before it's venerated in a solar cycle. So it's going to be very confusing. I'm trying to stay aware of what is perplexing people. Ultimately, I'm trying to encourage you to do a lot of the reading.
Let me ask you something. When does Sut or Set, what's the time period that Sut or Set comes up out of the south and becomes primary deity as primacy in the north?
Okay, these are advanced questions, okay? So there's no way I can directly facilitate the answer to that question. Everything I'm trying to say is part of the answer. And I could throw some things on there that are going to immediately cause a lot of contention, and people are going to either not be able to come to terms with it or just refute it instantly. And I'm trying to lay the groundwork for us to be able to understand this, because it is possible.
Right.
But it's, like I say, there's no instant gratification. But go ahead and finish your point or your question, and I'm going to try to take that on as we go through this.
I understand that's a very tough question, as mostly all questions that have to do with the time period are hard questions, because we weren't alive for that, and we really don't have much to go off of other than understanding these rites and understanding the rituals, understanding the symbols and the numerology. I get that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how does one come to understand how Set or Sut comes primarily from the south into the north as primary deity?
Oh, you mean why does it come into the north?
How and why?
Well, the how is associated with the migration in the Nile Valley, which is 4,000 miles long and flowing north. And this is based on the idea or the contention that I make that human civilization begins in the Great Lakes region of Africa. And what I call Egypt refers to the entire Nile Valley, which is 4,000 miles long, flowing north. So it's partly out of necessity as they migrate north in this Nile Valley, and the necessity is how to preserve the knowledge.
Okay.
So the creating of the mythology is also a means. It's not just a means to understanding our eternal life and our eternal life force, but it's a means to understanding that it's an expression, first of all. So, the mythology is an expression. So it's a means of expressing knowledge. And so the necessity is partly in finding ways of storing knowledge or passing knowledge forward and preserving knowledge in ways that it can't be destroyed.
All right, we're going to take a break right there. It's getting to the point of the time of day where the sun is shining directly into my eyeballs. But that's okay. We're going to keep grinding. We're going to wrap up episode number 20 in the next episode, I guess I should say. And be sure to go to w.gg, use code BeagleEyeVision. Get 10% off your order. It's delicious. It's good stuff. I can't wait to get some more and try some more flavors. And yeah, I hope you understood a little bit. I hope you understood some of this information. Like I said, it's very deep. It's very, I'd almost say intense, or not. No, I wouldn't go that far. It's heavy information, like what Doug said. It's very hefty. It's hefty knowledge, hefty information, these topics that he's tackling. We're going to take a little break here. I'm still going to be in the Mongolian Plateau. Let's see where our path goes. Oh, the Great Wall of China is right there. Oh, and I just want to mention before I forget, you can, if you're not in the northern Indiana area, if you just want to see some live music on the internet, you can go to twitch.com/MEAC574. 574 is the area code. So twitch.com/MEAC574. You can watch me open up the show and watch all the bands for absolutely free. All you need to do is I think you just have to have a Twitch account. And then you can comment on there, you can clown around, join in, have a good time, make some friends in the chat, in the live chat, and join us. You guys should join us. I'll be sipping some Dubby while I play live music. I'm going to be playing all the punk rock originals. I'll be playing a couple covers. I can't say the name of the band on this right now, but that's okay. Join us in the stream. Go to w.gg, use code BeagleEyeVision, and keep studying, read books. We're going to take a little break, and I'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in.